It's good that we are back here to continue our study. And we will go short into one short repetition. We still remember that we want to put all on a foundation that we cannot change, and that is the law. I hope you saw the red line in everything that I presented. Like I always bring it, the law that governs all things, taking and giving. We will speak tomorrow night especially about it. We speak about the structure that we could only understand having the law there. We have the needs and then the function, and we put all our study on that objective foundation that has no interpretation. Now, yesterday we came to the end of the human structure. That is, we did an overview of it, and I tried to do it once more so that we understand the model. You see, for me, having in front of my eyes a model of how things function makes it very easy to know, okay, where do I am in this situation? So, we have a body that starts in the cortex. I hope you got that, yes? So, we start here in the cortex, and everything that goes through the cortex down is history. We must know it comes from outside the cortex, it comes from the spirit. But now we need to know, where does the spirit start? Yes, we know the brain, there starts the body with all its functioning. And if the brain is damaged and you cut out from the brain your leg, then you cannot function with your leg anymore. Or even if you cut only the nerve down, you will have no connection from here to the body and it won't work. So we know the human body starts in the cortex, and we know that the spirit has also a starting point. He must have a starting point until he gives the input into the body. Because we have seen that he makes the power, he makes the electricity, and through his decisions, he governs how much? Everything. See, everything that works in our body, the whole metabolism that is there, is done by the decisions of our mind. So that's why we need to know, where do the decisions start? Where is the starting point? And so we go backwards. We know decisions make the electricity. And we have how many decisions? We have only 2 decisions. That is a yes and a no. You see, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, your saying should be yes, yes, and no, no. Everything else is from the evil. Why he said yes, yes, and no, no? Because he knew he made us with 2 cortexes, and our spirit must do it yes, yes, no, no. So it's interesting to know why he says yes, yes, no, no. Because we must put it on both sides. The only thing that unites the human brain is the spirit. If not, how should they 2 work together? Because the input comes from here, they only meet at the bottom. They only meet in the center of the brain and switch and come together. At the cortex, they are separated. Who unites them? That I can move my right hand like this and my left like this. There must be the input of the spirit, and he does everything with a yes and with a no. He always uses the both, the one, and I showed you how this goes. So what comes before decision? How many criteria do we have to say yes and to say no? This is repetition. I just want to check. The wheel is up here. What comes before? How many criteria do we have for decision? To what do we say? To 2. To what do we say yes and to what do we say no? We have the will that to do there, gain and loss. To gain we say yes, and to loss we must say no. Okay? And then before it comes to the gain and to the loss, we have motivation. What's the question of motivation? For whom do I want to have gain, and for whom do I want to avoid loss? And we were made as creatures, so to whom can we do loss and to whom can we do gain? Only. Only to God. Because motivation says you can only work for the one that made you to work for a purpose. And so you never can do loss to yourself because you have nothing. You're a creature. Yes, you have a consequence of that when you do loss to God, but you're a creature of God. You can never do loss except to the one that made you to do a work for him or to not do the work for him. Yeah? So we only can make a gain and a loss to God. The motivation is then, for whom do I do what I do? And I ask you now, God, for whom does he do what he does? For himself or not for himself? God himself. For whom does he do anything? For himself or not for himself? Not for himself. So God is totally unselfish. So he created that everything should work exactly like he works. And if he does nothing for himself, anything he created can nothing do for himself. That's the law. It's impossible. That's why motivation can either I work for him or I work for mammon or for the devil, for humans. You can never work for yourself. You can never be in your own service. But our deception says, I am in my own service. I do my own. I want this for me. And I must tell you, there is a doctorate lecture in the Bible from my attendee, Dr. Solomon. He wrote Ecclesiastes. Have you ever read Ecclesiastes? There is 12 chapters where he only speaks, you know about what? Who read Ecclesiastes? Pardon? About what does he speak in Ecclesiastes? I'm tempted sometimes to do a Bible study. So, let's look. Ecclesiastes 1. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. So about what does he speak? What profit has a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? So his whole thesis is about gain and loss. And since he saw all his equation through the evil eye, he comes to the conclusion that all is vanity. But you see, when Paul was writing and says, I have fighted the good fight of faith, did he say all was vanity? No. He was so deceived, but he wanted to know what is a gain and what is a loss. And he went all the time after gain, just discovering at the end that it was all vanity, loss. Read Ecclesiastes. It's now that you know how the heart works, it becomes a fantastic thing to see how deep Solomon understood the human heart. And how deep he writes about that evil eye. And at the end only, he comes to the conclusion and says, let us hear the sum of all teaching. What is it? Fear God and keep His commandments. That's all it is. Because then you have no vanities of vanities. Then you have victory of victory. And the gain remains. But if you search it in the wrong place, in the wrong way, then you come at the end of your life, or you come at a certain time in your life where you see that you worked for vanity. And that when Solomon got depressed. So, what's before motivation? So we need to know we can only do God, loss and gain. Yes? So what comes before motivation? What does the Spirit do before He can act? He must trust. Or he must, yes. Because trust is dependency. Since the Spirit cannot be forced to do anything, He must go out to take from outside His need. But He will do it according to who He knows He is. That's why the first and decisive thing is identity. Who am I? And if the identity is correct, how many sources of love do we have? There's only one. God is one. The one source for all spiritual needs is God. Love, righteousness, truth, liberty, harmony, loyalty, and all that. That's why the spiritual needs are infinite needs. I don't know if you ever get to the point to say, that's all our needs. Because God made the Spirit to just be dependent on Him through the needs that He has put in us. So through trust, I go through my heart. Through trust, I go out to God and take from Him that what He has. I work for Him. That goes through motivation. I do the right thing, and as I take from God, I can never do any mistakes. Yeah? Never possible. Out of grace. Imagine you do out of righteousness everything. How much wrong can you do out of righteousness? Can you do it? Nothing. Imagine you do all out of love. Anything evil can come out of love? No. So everyone, as long as Adam and Eve were bound to God and took from Him, there was never danger to do anything wrong. Never ever. So, now, this is the whole structure. God made us to take from Him through trust. But our trust is dependent if we know who we are. If we know who we are, we automatically trust in God. But if we think we are not a creature, then we think we don't take from God, we think we take from ourselves. That's why through Adam's sin, we have this situation that we do not know who we are. So we must know either we are this or that. And I think all in our consciousness we see that we cannot be God. Do you? Lately when you see that you cannot fly, or lately when you see that you're sick, lately when you see that you cannot control the circumstances, you must recognize that you are not God. So, we must know that the identity is the decisive element. Adam could only sin because he wanted to change his identity. He was tempted to think he can be a higher being, and if he could be a higher being, then why should he trust God? Because God wanted him to be a lower being. So temptation can only come if you want to be more than you were made. And so that's why he took his trust away from God, and he became changed in his heart, so that now he believes that he's something that he's not, and so he has no possibility to return to God. Now let us look a little bit to the law and how God's concept of creation works. He made the earth, and he put the earth in a system. why did he create man on earth? Have you ever wondered about that? I mean, why did he do man on earth? Why did he make him king? Because in God's way of working, he does everything to the same pattern. That is, there must be a starting point for everything and an ending point. And the ending point is the starting point. So let's do a little thing. From where do all the vessels of your body start from? Where is the starting point of all blood vessels? It's the heart. And where is the ending point of all blood vessels? The heart. Is that a circle? Yes. Is that circle going in one direction or in two directions? It can only go in one direction. Yes? That's why you see God is love. He gives His word, and then the fruit comes out of it. So where does the water come from? No, from where does the water come from that we drink today? Yeah, no. Where does the circle of water begin? Where does the circle of water begin? From the ocean, from the sea. The circle of water starts. And where does it end? At the same place. And how much does water do going through this circle? How much does it do? Does it leave something behind it? Wherever it goes, it gives. And what is it? It's green. The water is there to give to the earth. It comes, it starts from one point and ends in the other point. That's why Jesus says the heart of man is the starting point of everything in our life. And where is the ending of it? Also in our hearts. So that's why we have to understand the most important thing is the starting point of all things and the ending of it. Now, God created Adam for one purpose. How should the earth be supplied with power? And through whom? So God did Adam on this earth with the purpose to maintain the life on the earth. He was the only link of the world to his Creator. So here is the means, the power of everything is love, and God is the source, and Adam was the one that has to take it from God. Yes. He has to take it from God, and then what should he do with it? According to the law. He must give it. And what should the animals do with it? They should take from Adam, and they should give it further to the plants, and the plants further to the earth. And so, finally, in Adam, the end of the fruit will come that would go back to God, where all means come from. So Adam was, so to say, the only bridge between the earth and heaven. That's why he was king. He had to be the one dependent on God, the right circle, and then from him would start another circle that will end in him and will go back to God. That's how all circles work. Are you with me? So when Adam came, and what would have been with him? Everlasting joy and fulfillment. Why is our earth in a mess? Because when Adam separated from God, how much from this earth was separated from power? Everything. Everything. And we would not exist, and this earth would not exist, if God would have not made a bridge through Christ to still sustain the life on earth. We need someone that brings us the love of God to the earth, and since Adam lost that, God bridged it through his Son. We will see that in the plan of salvation. So now Adam took from the serpent, and what did he give now further? He gave further pride and selfishness, unrighteousness, lie, imprisonment. So why did the animal become aggressive? Because Adam became aggressive. They took it from him. Why do the plants die? Because they take the poison from outside. They must take the poison. They have no choice. Because everything in this circle now is a fruit of death. You see, when you now read some certain Bible verses, you understand to whom you bring fruit. If you have the flesh where you serve the flesh, you will be what? What is the fruit of the flesh? Death. And what is the fruit of the Spirit? Life. So we must understand this concept to understand why the whole world is in this mess. Why the animals were changed. Because when God made them, what were they eating? Plants. They were all on a plant-based diet. Adam was on a plant-based diet. He made the plants for food. Some people wonder and say, plants are not alive. I just was in a school teaching, and there was one student who says, I don't believe that plants are alive, or he said, the other materials are also alive. And now how can you argue with someone who says there is no difference between this matter and the living matter? Yeah? But there is a great difference. Yes, God gave us something living to eat, that we should have the right chemistry. We eat living things, or do you eat dead things? If you eat meat, you eat dead things probably. But if we eat that, it's life. It's life that we need to take there. So God gave all the animals to live from plants. And if anyone would have just have his own diet, there would have never been an aggressiveness in between the other animals. There would never have been something that would just make us to be aggressive. The animal became rebellious as the human became rebellious to God or disobedient. The animal became disobedient to Adam because Adam commanded them. They were obedient, but after that they became disobedient. But there are some dogs that are obedient. The dog where I live is obedient sometimes when I go in the morning with him. But I have to raise my voice that he has a habit. He runs after cars, and thinks he has to. I don't know what they think, but however, I have to tell him, you stay here, because I know now his habit. And so when he looks to me, if I see him, and I say, you stay here, he stays. But if I don't look, he's under the car. After the car. So the animals became disobedient, and we live a life in unrighteousness, in lie, in imprisonment, in uncertainty, in war, in ignorance, and in grief. So everything in this nature got changed. So we have again this interdependency that we have. Everything starts with take in order to give. And the circle started in Adam and would have ended in Adam. Now, I just want to make the circle clear. Everything that exists must start with take or with giving. Yes, only God starts with taking. Everything starts with taking, and then we must give. We cannot keep that what we take. So, it's so important that we know that everything in this nature works according to this law. And no one has a choice to change that. It's just now that we die because we take the fall thing. We do not take any more from God, and so the animals cannot take any more from us, and then this whole chain is a mess. The chain is still there, the law cannot be changed, but the means that is taken is the wrong one. That's why we have the result of it. You drink instead of water, poisoned water, or take salty water. Will you survive? No, because you drink the wrong thing. But you still drink, but you drink the wrong one. Now, even though everything in nature works according to take in order to give, the human heart is the only one that is not thinking it works like that. The human heart gives in order to receive. It's the only thing that is not according to the law. It thinks you live not in taking first, but you just give in order to receive. But this is just a deception. You can never give what you didn't take before. So, I was learning this lecture that you can never give anything that you did not take before. But since you think you're God, you don't see yourself that you take before you give. The taking is completely out of our mind, is it? Do you see yourself dependent on another human being? I had once a young girl, she was 15, and she had an interesting disease. She got a sudden hearing loss on her left ear. And she got it, I think, the third time. It always went away after a few days, but this time it stayed. And so she came to see me. But 1 year, the hearing loss didn't come on the left side, but she had a paralysis of the peroneus nerve. So for 6 weeks, she could not move her leg correctly. A nerve was paralyzed. No doctor knows why the nerve paralyzes, yes? But if you understand that the right leg and the left ear are from the same hemisphere, then you know it is the same situation. And it came in November in the same time. And this time now, she started with her hearing loss in June. And so she came to see me, and I do sometimes my experiment. I asked this 15-year-old girl and say, do you think you're dependent on your mom the way you think? What was her answer? No. She says, no. But I know exactly. Her body proves that her disease comes because she's dependent spiritually from her mom. So whom do I need to treat? Whom do I need to treat? Mom, of course. If I want to help the 15 years old, because you could share the thing with a 15 years old girl, she might understand, but she might not be able to do anything. Yes. That's why I had to talk to Mom. And I talked to Mom. And after 3 months, the hearing loss disappeared. So this is not explainable for the doctors, because they think, and she had a severe hearing loss on her left ear. You think that is dead, that ear. For 3 months now, she doesn't have anything, and the next day, it pops up, normal hearing. For 3 months, you don't hear well. Yes, you can prove it through the tests, and then suddenly it comes back. Because it's just happening in your brain. Oh. I don't know what today is happening here. It's all in the brain. And so we must understand that it's an illusion to think that you are spiritually independent. And this is the main point of all the lectures. We learned first time that we have a spirit that needs love. And we learned that if he's a creature, can he produce his own love? Can he produce it? No. He must take it from a well. He must take it from somewhere. But if he thinks he is a creature, he knows that he's spiritually and physically dependent on his Creator. But if he thinks he's a God, he thinks he is spiritually as well as physically independent. But the physical dependency you see, but the spiritual dependency you don't see. Only disease and behavior proves that you're spiritually dependent. And this is what we have to know. This is what God helped me to see in children. And let us look how a child comes to be in existence and how that works. So a child, and we have here the body of the mother, we have the spirit of the mother and the brain of the mother, which is green because it's also a part of the body. And we have here the child's body and the child's spirit and the brain of the child. Now, the child is not yet existent. And how does it come into existence? There are two half selves, yes, from father and from mother. Where do they meet? Where do they meet? They don't meet in the mother, they just meet in the air. You know that? They meet in the air and they come together. And then they start multiplying, yes? And then what happens? The embryo must put himself where? He must go and make a connection to whom? To mother. You know that he lives before he has a connection to mother? A physical one? Yes? Yes. In the air, while they meet in the tubes, yeah? It's in the air. It's neither in the mother nor out. Yes, nowhere. It's in the air that they meet and they come together. And now we know that the cells go and make a umbilical cord. From whom starts the umbilical cord? From mother or from the child? I hear from mother, I hear from child. No, who is right? So who must take? The baby must take. So the umbilical cord must start from the child. Yeah? Because mother cannot make an umbilical cord for the child. The child makes the umbilical cord and put itself on mom's body. And so from the embryo, the placenta starts and the umbilical cord. Yeah, it's part of the body of the child. It's not part of mom. So, how dependent is the body of the child from the body of mom? 100% dependent. With a choice or with no choice? No choice. You can never choose your mom. You can never choose the dependency. It's always set. And God said, your mom's body is your dependency. Now some men want to also have children in their own body. Yeah. But we don't go into that. However, it's just a woman can have children. It was just, I don't know, a year, 2, 3 years ago, it was in Berlin, the first man brought his baby to the world. That was the highlight of the newspaper. The headline of the newspaper, first man brought his first baby to the world. And I said, that cannot exist. Would you ever believe that if it were written in a paper? Would you believe it or not? It's not possible. They can do whatever they want. It's never possible out of a man to make a child. So what was the trick? It was a woman that became a man and it had a uterus, so that's why he could have a child. And if you have a uterus, you're a woman. Okay? No matter what you believe about yourself. But you see, people want to change their gender because they believe they're gods. They just do it. It's a mistake. It's an error of the mind. I just recently had a case where the daughter of a pastor said to his parents that God made a mistake. I'm a boy. I cannot be remaining a girl. So what will you do then? What will we do with this? Do we say, okay, how nice? So we have an anatomy. We cannot change that. You can try. But that's a matter of playing whom? God. So we must teach our children they cannot play God. They cannot choose what they are. You can never choose who you are, and you can never choose your purpose, and you can never choose the dependency on which you are. Because you're a creature. Imagine this device chooses its electricity. Can it? Its device chooses its purpose. Can it? You see, the hardest thing for us as humans is to understand that we are creatures. There is no harder thing than that. Because through Adam, we are so messed up that we think we are not a creature. We think we are creator. And all problems, everything comes from this idea that you think you are someone that you're not. And you think you're a higher being than you were made to be. To be just a creature, I say just a creature, is the hardest thing for us to understand. So, this child, whole life, to exist is dependent for 9 months, usually, from the mother's body. Who feeds the child? The mother or the child itself? Now some learned how I put questions. You know, you always have to think there is a trick in that question. And it is the mother can never feed the child. You know that? The law does not permit it. Every individual, living or dead, must feed itself because it must take in order to give. Mother is what then for the child? She's only the source. Yes? So just make a simple thing. The mother drinks alcohol. The child becomes drunk. Who made the child drunk? The child itself. Without what? A choice. But the action is of the child, not of the mom. So let us make that very clear. It's such an important thing. You do the action because you have no choice where you take from. And if that where you take from is wrong, you will have the result. But you have to take. The child has no choice. What mother eats, it must eat as well. What mother drinks, it must drink as well. All the well-being of the physical development of the child, the chemistry is coming from mom, without a choice. Now, when does the spirit start to exist? Pardon? In the same moment then the two selves come together, the spirit comes together as well. Because when were you created? Is that an easy question? When were you created? No, that's just a simple question. There's no tricky question in this. When were you created? Oh, man. Anyone else has a better idea? You were created in Eden. You were existing in Adam's lion, or how you call it? Loin? Oh, this is? Loins. Yes, loins. Thank you. I don't know how to express this. In Adam loins, we are all there when he was created. You were born 19-something, but created you were in Eden. Because you are just a multiplication of one body and of one spirit, that of Adam's. All that you have comes from Adam. You like it? We are all brothers and sisters. We are all come from one person. We are all come from Adam. That's why we are so messed up. Yes? Because we have his inheritance. That's why we have all the same ideas about ourselves. That's why we all think the same way. Because we are just Adam's multiplication. We are not new creatures. We are only new individuals. Living one life in billions of individuals. But all of us share just one life, that of Adam. It's a nice concept, but we hardly have grasped it without understanding the law. So, the Spirit comes from Adam. He comes together with the conception of the two things, but the Spirit is invisible, but we know he must be there. How do we know that he must be there? Because who leads all the development of the child's body to develop? Who leads the process? The child's spirit. So if mother has an issue in her mind during the first 3 months, where all the organs are set together, after 3 months, everything is ready. It just grows. The child only grows after 3 months. So, but it might have that the child develops no ear. It has no ear canal, and the ear thing is not there, or, How does that happen? Because the other ear is good. From whom is the ear development directed? From which place? From the cortex. I hope you. Yeah? So if everything is led through the Spirit from the cortex, then he must put things wrongly because he takes something wrongly in, so he builds that body the wrong way. But we know that the body cannot exist without a spirit. We just see biology. So there is a spiritual umbilical cord that the child's spirit must go through mom's spirit. Who does that spiritual cord? From whom does it start? From the child's spirit. The child's spirit must go and bind itself to mom's spirit. You see, when our daughter was pregnant, and she sent us the pictures with the big, how you call it, and she made movies, now today, WhatsApp, and she says, he has hiccups. Child got hiccups, and she showed us how he moves in her body. And I said, do you know why he has hiccups? You know why a child gets hiccups in the mother's womb? Because he maybe took too much air in, yes? Is there air in mother's womb? No air. So how does it become hiccups? It's very simple. Because mom had the problem. And if mom has a little bit of stress, the child gets hiccups. We must understand that the child's spirit must take from mom's spirit, whatever is in that spirit. And the child's spirit has a need for happiness, for joy. And now, if the child's spirit takes from mom unhappiness, what will it put in the body? It will put that bad electricity that you can see here in the body of the child. Because you cannot see the input of the spirit, but you can see the output of it. Because the output comes always in giving. But if you know that you can only take we can only give what you take first, then on the body you can know what's in the spirit of mom. There was an interesting experiment. I heard about it from a colleague that neurologists did. And they measured the electrical function in the brains of mother and child. And guess what they saw? They saw that whenever mom changed the electricity, the child immediately changed it as well. And they could put the children separate from mom. They couldn't see each other. Whenever mom changes, the child changes as well. Now, that experiment was for me just a proof that the spirit of the child is bound to the spirit of mom. You know, children feel and sense their mom. Not they feel, they sense their mom from a distance. There is a distance when the thing is interrupted. That's when children are given to the kindergarten, when children are given to daycare center. You know that they all get sick? We have a terrible sickness in children in Germany or wherever you go, where children are separated from their mom. And then they come up and say, oh yes, there are more germs in the kindergarten than somewhere else, and the child needs to pass through that, and his immune system needs to build up, so don't worry. I say, doctors are very funny people. Because if you would be a farmer, and your plant would have some problems, would you say, oh, that's a normal problem? The farmer would always say, when there's something in dysfunction, then that something is wrong, so he has to do something around that plant to make it work well. But when we see children sick, we say, oh, that's a normal thing. You see, I had one case, and I have many nice cases. I learned from cases. But the cases are not the proof. The cases are just a confirmation that that's the law. The proof is always the law. So never take the case as a proof, because I don't want to use the cases as a proof. I just use the cases as an example that the law is like that. A mother sent her child the first time to kindergarten, and after 4 days, the child got sick. So the child stays home for 2 weeks, recovers. Then she sends him again to kindergarten. After 4 days, the child is again sick. Then she sends him the next time the same thing. So she does that for 9 times until she comes into my practice. And I asked myself, why would she not stop the 5th time to send him in kindergarten? Because it's obviously, whenever he's there, he comes home sick after 4 days. So would you send the child somewhere where he gets sick? Would you? Would you do it? No, but why does she still send it? Because there are some teachings out there in the world that say your child needs sociality. It needs other children around it. And if you don't send it there, it will not develop well. And they don't know the law, that the child is not able to be separated from her mother's presence for 7 to 10 years. Always stay with mother. You see, You know how long a bear baby stays with her mom? How many years? 3. You know how many an elephant baby stays with the family? 13 years. 13. The child, and we have it, those who believe in the Bible, how many years should the child be with mom, and when should mom has finished her work to do? At what age?
12.
At 12. At 12, a mother should have finished his education. Wouldn't that be nice? Mothers are just free. But they never finish because they don't know how to do it the right way. So we must understand the umbilical cord of the child is after you cut away the physical cord is still there. So when the child is taken out of mom's womb, then we cut the physical umbilical cord. Does the child changes its needs? Oh, no. After it comes out of mother's womb, does the child still need oxygen? Does it still need water? Yes. So you can never change your needs at no point in life. They're always the same. So what does the child just change when it comes out of mother's womb physically? The source. But now the spiritual source must be changed in time until 12 years. Education has a purpose that the child's spirit should take away her umbilical cord from mom and bind the umbilical cord to the right place, that is to God. Like you bind him here bodily to nature, he must spiritually be bound to the source that he has to take his whole life from. Okay, hopefully it stays. So the experiment shows, and I have seen that in my practice, that the mother, this umbilical cord cannot be taken off except when the child becomes conscious of it. And mother needs in education, starting very early, to make the child dependent away from her, like she unweans the child from her body, she must unwean the child from herself and bind it to God. But have mother understood that? No. What do mothers actually do? They bind the children to them. And then you hear them when they, one mother told me once, she said, she had a 17-year-old daughter, she said, oh, when my daughter marries, then she has to make me a room in her house and maybe a place in the bedroom. That's mothers. They never let go. It doesn't matter what age. They always think that child is theirs. So, mothers should unwean the child from herself spiritually, so that the child is connected to the right source, so that it might be independent of mom when it gets to their place. The same way as she is dependent on the body for 9 months, we must know the time the child is spiritually dependent on mom. And that should be 12 years. But since we don't know the spiritual umbilical cord, we don't know how that works. So let me give you a few examples of children that showed me that they are taking from mom. There is one very simple example of a family. They came to me with their 3-year-old daughter, and the daughter had a cough, and this cough was for 1 year. And so they came to me as an ENT to look if something is in the throat And of course, there is nothing in the throat if your child coughs for 1 year. And so, but I looked into the ear, because you can have a problem in your ear and then you cough, because the nerve goes there, the coughing nerve, the vagus has a few connections. So yes, you can irritate him from outside and then you cough. But if you exclude that it is an outside irritation, then you must know it's only the child's own spirit that irritates the vagus up there in the cortex so that he makes the cough. And now you see, you must know for 1 year what happened. You cannot ask the child what happened, because the child is how much conscious of it? Totally unconscious. So I asked the parents, and what happened? A year ago, the parents moved in another apartment. And the mother doesn't like the apartment. She just starts weeping when she explains how she does not love the apartment. Now, mother doesn't like the apartment and is sad. She must weep. The child must take from mom. He has no choice. He has no need for a sad mom. Now he takes over sadness, and that sadness brings to the body the cough. Because the child would now help mom to become happy. Can he do that? Can anyone make another happy? No, but the child tries it because he has a will to do right for the mom, but his heart betrays him, and he would force mom to be doing the right thing. Now, what needs to be changed? The mom's way to think. I promised the mom, I said, if you are going to get out of your conflict with your husband, because in the end it's a conflict with her husband, because he says that apartment is right, and, we don't move again. And where does it go? Moving and moving until you get something where you like it. So I said, if she would stop that fight, and if she would trust in God, that even in such a circumstance she can be happy. Next day the child stops coughing. And it happened. I don't know in this case, because they didn't come back. Usually people, when they are well, they don't come back. But God helps me that some people come back. One of my first cases where there was a nervous tic. This girl got his nervous tic at 6 years of age. And the father was a dentist, and the girl made this noise, like this, every 2-3 minutes. Yeah, so. And then, of course, that's something strange. So they brought her to the doctor. They brought him to the ENT. The ENT took out the vegetations, We first put the knife where we should have no mind to do anything else. So they surged the child. They put the child under psychotherapy, but nothing changed. And so, after 4 years, they come to my practice because the child's teacher said to the parents, I cannot resist with this child anymore in school. Imagine you're a teacher and you have third grade children in your class, and you have one child that every 2-3 minutes makes exactly that happens in the class. All other children laugh. And now teach, whenever you see, you get nervous when this thing goes out. Oh, it has gone out again. And then you get angry when these other things don't work properly. And so they came to me, and the child was sitting in my back on the ENT chair. You have that special chair, and the parents were sitting in the other side. And they said, we don't know what our child has. And they did not even have a diagnosis that that's a nervous tic. And so they tried to explain me something, but suddenly the child made the noise. And I waited once more to hear it, to be sure that it's, because all tics are strange noises. Even coughs are something very strange. And I saw many tics, not the tics, the nervous tics. And it's one child I saw had to do, every time it must do such. And then it played, and even when it played with a one hand, so because it has to do this. Yeah, and this is a funny thing, so you do something with that or whatever it is. So, but they are easy to be treated in the moment you know where to do it. And so these parents were sitting there, and I heard it twice, and I said, "Is that the problem?" They said, "Yes, that's the problem." Oh, I said, "That's no problem. That's easy to solve." And so I looked to the child, of course, I saw everything in, and then I sent the child out because she was 10 years old. I cannot ask the parents what they do wrong when the child is present. Yes, that's not very smart. So I sent the child out of thing, and I said to the parents, the child is missing something. And that's what she's missing. You must provide. And the child misses security. And I asked one question. I said, does your child receive every time what it wants? And what did they say? Yes. And I said, that's the problem. So the child's security is in mother's strength. If mother is strong, the child can be bound well on her. But if mother is weak, that is when the child can govern mother like it wants, then the child has no security. It rules mom. And then this mother was also a sick mother. She only came later to me as a patient, and then I knew why the problem was there. But I spoke with them on Thursday night what they should change at home. And on Sunday, the tic was gone. But they came after 3 weeks, not to say that it happened, because they had another child that was 7 years old. And they said, these two children are always fighting together. You helped us that its nervous tic should stop, so can you help us that the children should not fight anymore? Now, I wasn't then so well known as I know today, but I was very happy. Imagine you're an ENT and you do education. I mean, isn't that nice? I felt very honored. And then I took that mom, she was not a Christian, and I said, you need to change a few things inside of you. Her father, her husband, is a dentist. How often is a dentist at home? They always have work. And so she, as the wife, missed her husband because her umbilical cord were bound to whom? To her husband. And so, missing him, she was in a fight with him. And the children's fight is just a mirror of mother's inside fight. So, mothers are the strongest power that exists on earth. If they would know it, they would change everything. Because a child must react without a choice, because it's bound to mother's spirit. And what mother's spirit has inside, the child will give out. And there are two things how you can see how it works. It either becomes physically sick or rebellious in behavior. There's two things, yes? You have two brothers, the one gets psoriasis, the other becomes addicted to games. The cause is the same. The one that is addicted, we say, oh, he could change. The one that is sick, we pity. But both have the same problem, the same cause. I had once a family where they had two daughters. The older daughter was more sickly. She was soft, she was obeying, so to say. But the younger one, she was 11, the other was, or the younger one was 9 or 10, and the other was 11. So the younger one with 10, she was always rebellious. She didn't get sick, but she always fighted against every unrighteousness. And now the father comes to me and say, what shall we do? And I said, that child is just a mirror of your own heart. Did the father like it? No. But if he tries to change the child, how much can he change it? But if he knows that it's his own heart, can he change that? Can he do something about that? Yes, of course, he needs God's grace, but he can do something about it, because you cannot help another one change his heart, only your own. And I spoke with mother as well, because she had a disc failure, because she was in the fight with this little daughter. And I said, you should be more thankful to God for the little daughter than for the older one. Both react the same way, both eat the same thing, but they react, don't react, they eat the same thing, but the one reacts with an inner protest, what makes sick. And the other reacts with an outer protest. That is in a fight. But you won't see the problem in that child that does not react correct, does not react outsidely, but you see the problem in this child. So thank God for that, because it helps you to see your own heart. And if you change that, you will see the result in days. I had the experiences of mothers. They don't like me when I teach this to them. But there was one mother that came to me because she had 13 and 14 years old children. And she said, they are like this, they are, with 14. And I said, look, if you change your inner life and you become happy with your husband, no matter if the husband changed or not, you will see what happens with your children. And even though at the beginning she was upset on me, but she started to do the test. And in between 2 to 3 weeks, the children were changed. And because she changed her source, I said to her, your source of love is your husband. And that's the wrong thing. If your husband would be always nice, always present, always happy, how much problem would she have? Women, how much problem would you have if your husband would be always? No problem. Even if you would be from the wrong dependency, but you would have no problem because he's always there, he's nice, he's happy, he's glad. But thanks God they are not like that, so that you can see that taking from them is wrong. So, understanding the principle of dependency is so important. I had one mother, the last example, came to me with her 2 sons. The oldest son was 8, the other was 6. And the psychiatrist sent her to me because the oldest son was uncontrollable. He went to school, no one could teach him anything. He did what he wanted. That remembers on my childhood, I was always so. I will tell you the story tomorrow or in these days coming. And the other one was a little bit better, the second. The oldest one, with 10 months, started to hit himself with his head on the floor. With 10 months, whenever he went aggressive, when he became nervous. With 7 years, he told his mom he will kill himself. And whenever he got stressed, he went and did something hurting him. He was not aggressive outsidely, but he went somewhere to hide, and then he did something to his body. And so they went to the psychiatrist, and since he also didn't listen to the psychiatrist said to me, let's see if he hears something. As an ENT, you have to see if the child hears. Now, I knew the child heard, I made the test, but I spoke to that mom because I wanted to help the mom. So I said to mom, if she has something on her heart. Now, when I put that question, I must be very careful because moms immediately become with guilt thoughts. They think they are guilty for what the child has. But are they guilty or not guilty? They are not guilty. You cannot be guilty for something you don't know and for something you have no ability to change. Guilt comes only with knowledge, but knowledge is not enough, with the ability to not do it anymore. If not, you have no guilt at no place, at no point. How could you? So moms don't know it, but through the problem, through the law, they might know it so that they can do something about it. That's why I share this with the mothers. Because if I share it or not, the truth remains the truth. And so I asked this mom, but she didn't want to open up because she said, what is the problem with me? I once had a big problem with one mother because she had an ADHD, or how you call it? Yes, ADHD or whatever. And the child was 7 years old, and she said, I saw it on your homepage from your practice, you deal with these kind of things. I said, yes. And so she made an appointment, but I said, you don't need to bring the child, you come alone. Mom was very, what, I should bring the child? I said, no, just if you want, bring your husband, but the child is not needed. Because mom thought that I should fix the child. But I know I have to fix whom? The mom. But mom was very upset. I lost that place. I lost that lady because she was a teacher. She had to go to school. And she said, I'm doing everything right. But I said, yes. But your child needs you 100%. And your mind is not with the child. Your mind is with your career. And if your career is before your child, then the child will develop disease. Because he's in a battle with love from you. Because his selfish nature is in battle. You see, I had once a lady, she became a Christian, and she had a 7-year-old son, and becoming a Christian, she started to be a book seller, how you call this? Colporteur here, yes, giving books away. And the child got angry upon God and he hated God. And I said, I know why. Because God stole his mom. You see, mothers don't know that there is the first thing first and literature is second. But we don't understand. Did mother do something intentionally wrong? No, she wanted to do God's work. But she did not know the law that that child cannot live without her. So, coming back to this case, where this mom with these 2 boys, and she couldn't open up enough, but she said me one sentence, and that sentence showed everything. She said to me, she said, whenever I am in the evening laying down into my bed, I am glad that the day is over. But my gladness immediately disappears in the moment that I think tomorrow it starts again. Is this a happy woman? She's totally distressed. And she told me, I said, I never tell anyone what's in me. I say, you cannot hide anything from your children because their spirit is bound to your spirit. They know everything. In mom. That's why there is a dependency there. So I could give you heaps of examples. I told you about the experiment. So let us look how the things is. When the child is born, his spirit is bound to his mom. In the center is the spirit of the child and then the spirit of the mother. But then the child knows father as well. Thank you. Probably because I don't use it too much, he thinks he can go to sleep, so whatever. He doesn't think, but. How is he there? Okay. So this is a child spirit, and from the beginning it's bound on mom, he has no choice. But then when he comes out of mom, he starts binding to father as well. But for which purpose does he bind to his father? To take. Then he has a grandmother. So he binds his spirit to grandmother. Then he has a brother. He binds the spirit to brother. And things he takes, always binds them for the purpose to take. He has no capacity, because he has the error, to bind himself for the purpose to give. So the child does not know that it takes from the other one, but it thinks it claims. Yes? So if he's king, he claims mom's love. He claims dad's love. He claims and thinks they owe him something. So every time he claims, and if he's a Christian, he claims from God to be loved. So that's the error, because we don't know what's in us. We do not know that we bound ourselves for the purpose to take, but in our consciousness we think, oh, they owe us love. And so the child is the prince in the center, and everyone me to serve him. And that happens also, does it? He gets the toys to share or to keep for himself. So, then, let us come to the end. Identity determines dependency. If I am a creature of God, but I'm born with the idea that I am God, this cannot exist. The reality is that I'm separated from God, even though I'm a creature, and so I bind myself for the purpose to take to all other people around me. So, our relationships are dependent relationships in order to take. With the nature that we think we are, we can never have one relationship that is free, that is flexible. It's all total dependence. You see, in psychology, you speak from codependency, but that's just a myth. It's always dependency. It's always dependency. Except you're born again, then you start to become independent. You have relationship for the purpose to love. All issues of mankind arise from his wrong spiritual dependency, which he is not aware of. So in every case, you know the cause. Yes? He's spiritually dependent from the wrong source, so he can never be alive. He destroys himself because he must eat something that is not palatable for his spirit. And so he responds back. I saw a child, he was 13 years old, the child was obese, the mother came to counsel, and the mother had an issue. She had no husband. She was longing for the love of a husband. And so I counseled her and said, it should be enough. She should take from God and then give, and the Lord will take care. She doesn't need a husband. But don't tell the other woman when she thinks she needs a husband. And so I shared with her the law and counseled her. And at the end of my message, I took goodbye from them, and the child was there as well. And so I encouraged mom once again and said, take from God, become happy, and then the other things will be fine. God will lead it, and if you need a husband, you will have one to work better for God or not. And while I was saying these 2-3 words to her, she says to me, but I need a husband. I need a man for love. And then we're standing there, this 13-year-old child, and the child says, but Mom, isn't it not enough for you that I love you? Isn't that heartbreaking? This child is bound, her spirit is bound on Mom, and she cannot understand that Mom needs more love except her love. And she does everything, that's why she's obese, to make Mom happy, but she cannot. It's impossible. So, let us finish with 2 slides. If I am God, then I have expectations on others, including God and myself, you know? That's why people get angry on God. Could you ever get angry on God if you're a creature? If you know that God owes you nothing, or does God owe you anything? Does God owe you anything? No. Because He didn't make you that He should owe you something. He's a source, and you have to go to take. So you have expectations on others, and you have claim towards others, including God and yourself. So you think a gain is when someone fulfills your claim or your expectations. Then you have a gain. And when they don't fulfill it, then you think it is a loss. That's why the result in your behavior is discontentment, wrath, strife, controlling others, force, stress, anxiety, and in the body, disease. That's how it works. That's the most simple slide I can make to see it, that we shall understand it. So, if we would be a creature, if I would know what is the truth, and I'm a created being, how much expectations would I have of others? Of God and of me? None. If I would be a creature, how much claims would I have towards others? How much rights I would say, you need to fulfill my right? How much would I say? None. What would be the gain? The gain would be fulfilling my duty that I have. Fulfilling of my duty. What would be the loss? Not fulfilling my duty. How would be my reaction when others do mistakes? I would be content, friendly, joyful, peaceful, patient. I could be good to others because they don't do me any wrong. And what would happen with my body? He would be healthy. So, our problem is just one. Who am I? This must be solved. If this is not solved, we can never trust God. We will always automatically trust to humans. And we will always play the God here, claiming from others and thinking others owe us something, while they owe us never anything. We must have a spiritual umbilical cord that is God, that must be bound to God. Then our life, how much sadness does God have? How much unfriendliness does He have? Does God have anything that you don't need? Yes or no? Did you understand the question? Does God have anything that you don't need? No, everything He is your need. So if you go to Him and take, you can never be unhappy. If you take joy from God, you are a joyful person. That's why Paul says, be joyful. How often you're Christians? Have you ever seen Christians to be joyful? They are more sad than other people. Because they worry no more than others. Isn't that a sad thing? Every Christian should shine. You see in his face, oh, you must be a Christian, you shine. Not an artificial shining. It must not be your mouth must not be open wide, but you shine just through your presence. You know, in Ministry of Healing it says, a Christian should be surrounded by an atmosphere of peace and happiness. When people stay around you, they must sense that there is peace in you. They must sense that there is gladness in you. There is power for everything. That's a Christian, isn't it? Because that's why he proves he takes from God. But if he takes from his spouse, poor guy, I mean, you will see it. And you can see it becomes in his body visible. And then you must teach him to not take from that person anymore. I have to teach my patients only one thing. They must change the source. Because they eat from a well that has not what they need. I understood that in my own experience. But I will tell you that tomorrow night. Because I was drinking out of a well. But I didn't know that I was drinking out of the well. That was not making me happy. But I changed the well 2003. And since then I started to taste the water that comes from God. And that is unexplainable. I mean, that is not, how I can say, there is no price to take out from God what you experience by taking from Him. The peace you is as a result of it. There is no human relationship that can compare with that. Because the Bible says, taste and see how good God is. And I want to stop taking from humans. I want to always take from God. Then all my output is godly love. All my output is friendliness. All my output is joy. And joy, would it ever make anything wrong to my body? There would be always right electricity, right hormones, no problem of the bone marrow. We would just live very nice. And I want to get to that place where I'm knowing fully that I'm just a creature, and where I have a total binding to God in trust, and I have only a binding to my neighbors that is 100% flexible. They can do whatever they want because I'm there for them, never they for me. And that's the better way to live. And that is the law of life. So we hear a music, and then we have questions if you have some.
Thank you. Very interesting presentation. I have a couple questions. One, I don't even know if it makes a difference.
You have to speak louder.
Okay, I don't know if it makes a difference. Just went through my mind when you say we have to know who we are. So if we go back to Garden of Eden, if you said Adam and Eve were deceived, the serpent came and placed mistrust, really deceived them. And what it created was like, can we trust God? So we can't trust God, so we have to take care of ourselves.
No, they wanted to be higher.
Did they want to be higher, or
Exactly.
was it a mistrust that was placed, and through that, because they thought God doesn't really take care of us, so we have to take care of ourselves?
No, they had no need. It was only they wanted to be higher than there is never a need to mistrust God, except you want to be more, because they had to eat from every tree. There was no hunger, there were no thirsty, there were no need that they should go and say, oh, God doesn't take care for us, and I have now to supply my own need. No. They were just wanting the same thing that the devil wanted, that's what the devil tempted them and say, you were made, and that I explained yesterday night, you were made for a higher class. That's how he tempted the angels. You have to do more out of you. That's the same today, the thing. So you only can come into temptation to mistrust God when there is no need there to be not supplied, because all needs were supplied. Then it is because you want to be more than a creature.
Yeah, I can't see or understand that quite, because they didn't even know what deceiving is. They lived in perfect harmony. They had no idea what that even means. They were warned in Eden that somebody will come and that, but they didn't know that. But eventually, at least I still see it as
no, but see what
misleading.
Yes, but that is theology. But you must understand the problem is that the devil promised Eve, you will be like God. Because they wanted to know something that God said you don't need to know. Mm-hmm. And only when you become a God, you know what a God knows. And so there is never a change. You have to see from the beginning, the devil could never go, because he was the highest being after God, he would never get into trouble if he would not have wanted to be more than just a creature. And now Adam and Eve want to be more than just a creature. They want to know more than what God has said to them to know. So it's the same thing behind it. If not, you cannot sin if you don't want to become God. You can only sin if you don't want to become God.
I can see it with Satan, that he has that to be higher than him, because he really lived I mean, closer than anybody on earth. But I see he deceives, and then it's a mistrust. And then actually my question was, do we really need to know who we are, or do we need to see who God really is? Because it says somewhere, I think it is in Romans, where it says, it is the goodness of God that will lead us into repentance. I'm paraphrasing. So.
Yes, I understand the theology behind it. But the problem is not God. The problem is us.
Yeah, that we see it wrong.
And the greatest need that the human has is to know himself. Because our knowledge of ourselves is our greatest problem. And we can, if we don't know ourselves, how shall we guide ourselves? Because we need to guide ourselves. You need to know your car to know where to push the buttons. Our problem is, through not knowing the law, we cannot know God, because God can be known only through the law, because we cannot see him. Through the law, we can know God, we can know us, we can know the problem, we can know grace, we can know what he does for us, that we need to be saved. But the problem is, when you read through the whole Bible, it's not the issue that you don't know God, because the knowledge of God comes from the knowledge of the law, and you only know who God is when you know that you are a creature.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure if I still have that.
But you have to
one. Yeah, I have to.
More a specific question to the lecture.
One. Yeah. Well, I think it was to the lecture. Another one is because. Well, I can see this. The child is depending on the mother's spirit and how they are connected. And you said the work of the mother, or as the Bible says, should finish at age of 12. Does that mean that there is a slow process of unwinding the child?
Yes.
Where it learns to not take from mother and rather depend on God? And does that mean that under the age of 12 or somewhere, the child has actually no choice but taking from others?
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And if sinful nature, if that nature in us that we think we are gods, that makes us blind to the taking, because we are not aware of taking, if that doesn't change, we always have relationships just for taking.
So is it ever too late?
It's never too
once
late.
the child is past 12?
No.
That dependency towards the mother,
Yes. It can
it
always.
has to be on the right.
Yes. I mean, if it's only by the grace of God that we can come to the place that we should not take from these people around us anymore. We must understand that the taking from a human is our problem. And we will see that we can only break tomorrow night the law only through taking from the wrong source. But since we don't know our identity, that's why we don't know the taking. No one in even our religious approach speaks from taking. We always speak from giving. We say, give your heart to Jesus, give that, give that. But we are not aware the problem is not in giving. The problem is always in taking. Because the law can only be broken at the beginning. That giving is included because you have to give what you take. That's why the devil, and this is where the temptation came in, the devil didn't want to take anymore. He just wanted to give. That's why he has no problem to make us giving, as long as we don't know that we take somewhere. We are not aware of our spiritual dependency. None of us. I was not aware of it for many, many years. Didn't know it. But spiritual dependency is the problem. Yes, because there everything starts. Adam wanted not to take anymore from God. He took from someone else. Yes, and Eve. And so we must come back to take again from God. That's the only restoration that's possible. The only battle that we have is whom we trust, because trust is taking. And since it is subconscious, that's why we need to become conscious of it. That's why on the disease I saw from where humans take from. That's why I could discover that the child takes from mom. I could see that this taking doesn't stop except you become born again. Only through the new birth that process stops at the place, but it still continues until you stop totally to take from others, thinking not anymore, trusting humans, not trusting yourself, trusting only God. That's a learning process. There's another question in the back there. Yes?
I got the mic.
I'm very fascinated with this concept of parenting, and I've been reading several books by James Dobson, one on raising girls and another one called Raising Boys, and he highlights a lot how important it is that fathers are involved in their children, and there's all these statistics about kids that don't have fathers, how they are more likely to be in jail, and girls have bad self-esteem and all these other things. You haven't mentioned anything about the father, which, hey, I've got no burden about being some super dad. But is there, do you just think all that's hogwash and that it's all about the time the children spend with the mom and that we dads should be giving more time to the mom instead of the dad? Like, where's the balance and the need for dads, or do we take over at 12? What's the philosophy do you have?
Good question.
I didn't understand the last thing, but it must be funny.
He was just saying that dads, is it that dads take over after age 12? Moms up to the age 12, dads,
No.
Is that right?
Yes. Now, when we don't know the law, we become confused. And by the law, God made mom the source for the spirit. And the child perceives dad through the spirit of mom. So if mom has a desire and a need for dad, the child will express that by wanting to have a dad. Because it just expresses the desire of mom. So once a lady was there with her child, and I asked the little girls, what is dad making? What is your dad making? Because I knew the family. And that little girl said, he's never at home. Was that her answer or the answer of mom? See, children want to do the good for mom. So their binding to mom is from the way God created us, a different one than to dad. So the dad must not be present the whole day when the child is there. Mom must be present all the time. So dad must go out to do the job, must do the work, while mom must stay with the child to do the children's education, building the character of the children. And the dad must have a outside work doing there. And so there is a co-working between dad and mom to raise up the children that belong to God. But I know that dads sometimes, when I speak about mom's responsibility, they feel unnecessary. Or mothers, they say, and what do dads do? Because they think they're overwhelmed by their responsibility that they have. Yes, the dad has a similar trust, or what I say, a similar responsibility, but it's on another place. It's not to build the character so much of the child like the mother. Yes, of course, the child will look to dad, but it will look to dad mostly to the eyes of mom. That's why the greatest need of child is that mom should love dad, but not with a love that wants to control dad, but with a love that lets dad do what he wants, which is very hard for a mom to do because she is bound on the dad. She thinks he always does too much and the dad doesn't do enough because she feels so, because she's overwhelmed with the children. James Dobson, when he described that the children that had no dad went to jail, was not about the dad. It was about because mom was missing dad. Because if mom could live without the dad happy, then the child would not get into prison. So that must be theirs. I hope to understand, and we will speak on Saturday about a little bit about education, but I love to do once a series, a very, very put together series, because right now I'm having just this series very good, well put together, but education, I'm still searching to put a nice construction on it, to share the principles so that they can be understood. And I will share that on Saturday, on Sabbath, how I did it as when I saw my responsibility as a dad. It's another one than a mother's responsibility. But if everyone would fulfill its responsibility, the family would function well. But we take observation, and yes, we need to observe. But if we observe without the law, then we can very fooled and say, oh, because dad was not there, now the child ends up in prison. Yeah? But that cannot be. Yeah? So we must make mothers to be happy without the dad. So they should be spiritually independent of their husband. Then they could cope with every problem, and then the family would work well. If mother would be dependent on God, like the husband would be dependent on God, both would do exactly what they should do if they all would orient themselves after God and not after each other. Yeah, but we have to understand the whole principle. Then we know the family is God's, we are God's, employment, and so on, and that thing. But that play a major role. They have to sustain the whole family. They have to do the laws. They have to do the family altar. They have to do the things. But mother is there for unconsciously to prepare herself that the child unconsciously feeds from her. I saw children where the parents switched the roles. Yes, where the mother went to work and the father stood home. How did that work? It doesn't work. Because the child is still sick. Because his spirit, his umbilical cord is bound to mom, not to dad, in the first place. Now, yes, they can develop to bind their spirit on other persons as well. That's what we have with orphans. But they always have a issue because there is no replacement for mom, as there is no replacement for God. That shows the unicity of the love source that can only be God and mom in childhood. Please. But we will talk more about education on Saturday
afternoon
at 2 o'clock. Yes.
I just want to add for the question that he was asking, and I think the position of the dad is represent Jesus at home, to be a help for mothers, and I believe what you are saying. Everything depends from mom for what they are getting. Dad needs to help praying and with actions and with character to give hope to the kids too. But I think we must need to born again. If we don't born again, everything will be a mess at home.
Yes, of course.
Here's another question right here.
Yes.
So what if there's just the mom and the mom has to work and there's, he's gone all day from me. What of it?
Yes.
What then?
It's not a good thing, but I had an interesting case once when a child was given to the kindergarten, and since the mother could stay with the child, and the child was given to the kindergarten, the child developed a nervous tic in the kindergarten. But later on, mom had no choice. She had to go to work. And during she had no choice to go to work, the nervous tic stopped. Until she had again a chance to not go to work, and the nervous tic came back. So we must understand the child's first need is that mom has the child on the first place. The child knows that. If you need to go to work to sustain both lives, and you don't do it for yourself, then because of the difficult circumstances, yes, it's not the right thing, but you still do it for the purpose of the child. That is, I mean, for God, but you understand, you don't have your own career in your mind. And there must be seen if there is not another way, because usually they have a dad and they have a state. And I know that today in Germany, if you're a single mom, you would not need to work, because there is enough support for the child and from the father of the child by the law that mom should take care for that. Most moms don't go to work not because it's really the need, but because it's more easy to go to work than stay home. Yeah, and that the child needs, and this is very important for parents, the child should never be a burden for mom. Never. Whenever the mom thinks my child is a burden, the child knows that. And in that moment, the child says, now how can I make my mom that I should not be a burden for her? So we have to have such a clean mind that we never think my child is a burden for me. Because then the child becomes confused, because it says, you know, his selfish nature will say, I'm not loved, and all this. So we need to know, yes, children are very demanding persons. And you must be there and only there for them. But if you know how they work, you know how to guide them so that they have peace in their mind. But as long as we have a battle, if the child needs to battle for mom's love, you know, to fight for it, because mom has that and that and that, then the child developments will not be good. I tell you maybe a little story of one young woman that I met a few years ago. She's also an Adventist, and she had a 2-year-old daughter. And the daughter was behaving strangely. And after my seminar, she came to me and asked me, what shall I do with her? And I asked her what she's doing, and she says she's a medical student in the 3rd year of her medical student. And she says, it's my dream to become a doctor. And I said, well, you need to stay home with your child. Your child needs you. Because your child is on the 2nd place, not on the 1st place in your life. Your career is more important than your child. And so your child will always have a battle with you. And it will not develop well. And I spoke to her a few months later. And she didn't like what I said to her. Because she said, it's my dream to become a doctor. I said, yes, university can wait. University is not dependent, your life is not dependent on university. But that life has an umbilical cord bound on you that has no choice. And the Spirit of God worked on her heart, and she froze her next year. In October, she froze her year of study and stayed home. And she came to see me at the meeting where I did, and she told me the experience and how the child immediately changed, and how the child asked, Mom, are you really not going to work anymore? And so she took that situation but it is a hard battle then to come back that the child should trust consciously your mom again. It's bound dependency there with the umbilical cord, but it's a battle with the child because the child now thinks, maybe how long will this last? Yeah? So after 1 year, she had to do something. So she calls me, shall I go back to university or shall I stay home? And so I said, I can't tell you what, but you know the rule. Your life is not dependent on university, but this life is dependent on you. And so she freezed 1 more year, and during that next year she got pregnant and got another child, and now university is frozen, but she has 2 children. And the second child is now, I think, 2 years old, and she sees a marked difference in development. Even now that she stays at home for several years, it is a problem that her older daughter obeys her, because she obeys Dad. She has no conflict with Dad, but it's their little selfish spirit revenges themselves on Mom. And so Mom needs to know from the beginning how to deal with that, because they don't do it because they want to, but their behavior just show how deeply they can move that selfish nature, how that makes that thing to go. So I would suggest, I say this sometimes, if you go to God as a single mom and says, Lord, this is your child. I know the rule. Help me to know how to do it. And I know that if I go to work, your child has some not good development. And if you want it, I go to work. But I would stay home to do my job correctly. So do something about it. And God will do something about it. But you must be decided to say, God, I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for your child. And if you don't give me any means to sustain life, I have to go myself. But then your child suffers, not mine. But if we are so decided with God, He has our heart already, and then He provides what we need. We might not have any luxury, but we might know how to deal with our children. So there's always a solution if we go to... There's a last question. Or, yeah, maybe we take 2. You see, now this thing works well.
So once you learn this process, does it just become easy? Or is there always this mental battle to stay in this place of surrender? And
now we will be in a battle as long as our identity is the wrong identity. But when we once reach that full dependency on God and full trust in God, even though there will be a battle and we will be challenged, but we're so bound to God that doesn't move us anymore. But there is a battle until we reach that, yes. There's a continual awareness from where do I take, because it's so easy to take from the wrong source. Exactly. Yes, yes. Yes, you become aware of them. Because you must become conscious of what you do. So you think beforehand. And it's amazing how in this time that I'm learning the things, how I am very careful what to do, what to think. You plan before. You know, you're not just spontaneous anymore. You become, you have time to think what you thought before you don't. So it's a training, of course. It's a training together with God to know yourself, to examine yourself each day until you come to the point that you know yourself. Correct. Total free, yes. There's one more question there.
Thank you. I see it's getting late. My question has to do with a child that's not your own. I have stepchildren, or even if a child's adopted, how does that, as a mother to a child that's I didn't birth or carry, how does that?
That's why I say the child can, if it's adopted, can make an umbilical cord to its adopted mom or parents, yes? So it will orient herself after them because it must do it, has no choice. And so it's so important that the same thing, mothers should be very, very careful about what they are in their inner life. Because somehow they can read it even from the behavior of mom, from the voice of mom. They know how mom is. When we took our 6 foster children, they immediately sensed us in split of seconds, I think, and they categorized us how they could behave to us or not. Yeah, and with the parents, with the children, it's they read you. They know how you are towards them, and knowing that they're selfish, it's so important that we always give them the clear information that you love them and they are first. Yeah, but there is a challenge because it's not physiological to have an adopted child. Yeah, but there is still things that can work well. I have an experiment going on in Romania where a couple, they had no children, and they got the child from right after birth. They took it away from mom, and the child is now almost 2 years old, and I observed the family, and I want to know what happens with this child, how it develops. If it could make an umbilical cord to this mom that she was not born in, yes, but I know from adopted children, they want to know later which are their parents. If they know that they are adopted, they will want to have their own mom. Yes, they want to know, why did my mom reject me, or whatever it is, or why did she, yeah? So because the child thinks mom is responsible for her, or yeah, and finds its identity in the mom. So the child is not sick until now, but the mother is always with her because she didn't have children until then, so now she's very happy. She raises that child, and but I want to know how that child develops because I'm very curious. You see, I know the law, and I want to see how things, even under difficult circumstances, are able to go well. And I think if adopted children would come in a home where there is peace and happiness, they would become like that as well. But if we don't know how to work with a child, then it's a fight. You see, the worst thing in family is that mothers and fathers fight with their children. There should never be a fight between the parents and their child. But we don't know how to deal with that because that little child is a god and wants to have its own will. And then mother fights back, and the fight must stop at the parents. And when they know how it works, they can do a good job in a little time. And when you once have the routine, when you know what is to do and what is not, then you will see how good it works. Because children are easy to be satisfied if you know how they work. But because mothers cannot know what's in their heart, and so if mothers are stirred up, the children are stirred up automatically. And then how can you have peace? That's why it must start with mother. It must start with mother inner life. There must be total peace there. Yes?
So you're saying that the bond, the connection between a child that's not your own and the mother, the replacement mother is not so much the spiritual umbilical cord, or you're saying you can't really say for sure whether that can be replaced or
the umbilical cord is to mom, but it could be replaced because they'll survive. Yes, so the child must have the ability to bind itself to other persons as well because it has it. Because it takes father, it takes, all this are bonds where the child goes to take. It's like I call it like a vacuum cleaner, you know? Everywhere it goes to take. And so the child can do that. But let's give him something to take that is right. Yeah, that's something that fulfills his need. Then that's fine. I say, if it's good that my children take from me, because as long as they take God's love from me, that's well. It's still the wrong dependency for them, but at least they have no conflict to fight against me. Yeah? So, if I understood you well, so we must know the mother must be independent of the child. Doesn't matter if it's an adopted child or if it's an so-called biological coming from you. Because mothers, if they're dependent on the child, they cannot raise the child correctly. They must know this is our job for God, not for the children, not for me. So only independency can bring you to be a good mom. Because then you will never fight with the children. You will just do the job correctly. But this is high level of, yes, but we have to come to there. And I think young mothers, if they would understand it now, they could do a very well job. Well, thank you.